I've been trying to push myself to have more fun with art by indulging into the things that I really, really, really like. So when I realized that I don't have to stick by one genre, in fact, I can take two different genres that I enjoy and then combine them together, oh, it was over for everyone. The only problem with this idea is that I had a bunch of characters that I wanted to add to the story, but they didn't fit with the aesthetic that I wanted. So let's just fix that now. Well, we answer the question, what if magical girls and vampires coexisted? So right away, I knew that I wanted to make a lineup of all the characters to make sure that they all look good together, because that was the initial problem. They all just look a little odd and unusual when they stand together. Well, not just when they stand next to each other, just generally. They just needed a little bit of work. And work I did do, because I tried so many different iterations for this lineup, and nothing felt right. I felt like they just looked odd. And this is where I ran into my very first mistake. I wasn't thinking about the characters individually. I was thinking of the characters as a whole. I was so worried about them looking distinct in their own ways and them not matching at all that they feel so incredibly disconnected from one another. And also, when sitting next to Delilah, who is the girl with the bun in her hair, they just don't look like main characters, especially Eimi, who is the one with the pink hair, and Ro, who is the one with the green hair. So after more renditions, I decided that the best course of action is to completely scrap the idea of doing them in a lineup, and instead, I'm going to think about their characters and their plot individually, and then create the design based on that. And then if I have to change it later on to make them all match or make them more distinct, I'll do that later on. But before we do that, I want to talk about the setting that they live in at this current moment, because it's very important for their story. It's a lot of needed context. If you don't know it, it might be a little confusing. So the story is named Vienna because the town they live in is called Vienna. It's also known as the Town of the Forgotten because not many people outside of Vienna care about or know about this town because it's very run down. Around 10 years ago, there was a very horrific flood that washed away half of the buildings of the town, and also it killed a lot of people. So after the flood, a lot of people used boats to get around, and for some reason, shape, or form, there has been an uprising of vampires in their town. Or at least it's like a vampiric-like disease. Not many people in the town know of it because it's a very hidden fact. Like, everyone who does know tries to hide it just so that there isn't like community hysteria. And with these vampires comes Magical Priestess, which is basically this universe's version of Magical Girls. And currently there's only two, it's Delilah and Ro. They're best friends and I love them so much. But as Magical Girls, their duty is to go out, find the vampires, and use purification magic to bring the vampires back to human form, or at least as close to human form as they can get. And with that, there's also a vigilante team who is going against both the vampires and the magical girls because they don't think that vampires should be cured. They think that vampires should be killed off because they see vampirism as almost like a virus, like a pandemic, if you will. So they think that the only way to get rid of the vampires is to kill them in the traditional stake in the heart type of way. The first person I wanted to talk about is Delilah, because she's my favorite. Delilah was actually kind of challenging. You see, the thing with Delilah is that I have had Delilah as a character for, I think, over 5 years now. I want to say I've had her for 7 years, ? Initially, she was actually my mascot. But the more I drew her, the more I started thinking about her personality. And the more I started thinking about her lore. She just eventually detached from me and was her own character. And honestly, for a while, she was a Danganronpa character. I unfortunately don't have any art of this, so just take my word for it. I wish I had my old art. I wish, but I don't have it, I fear. And if you're wondering, her ultimate was the ultimate lawyer. But anyways, throughout the years, she's kind of had the same outfit. It's the white polo shirt with a dress on top of it. Initially, the dress was yellow, and then it turned gray, and then it was blue, and then it was black. But for a while, that was just her. And also, her bun. It stuck with her for a very long time. So I knew that I had to keep that, but I didn't know what to do for the rest of the designs. I also had a very hard time to pick what shape she was, because for a while she was triangles, because she's a lawyer, so she's very argumentative. But that's not who she is in this story. Eventually, I did decide to give her a circle shape, because her whole thing is that she's very friendly. She's like the girl next door type of character. Like, she is someone you can always rely on. She is kind and compassionate, and she always says she's okay even when she's not. And in this story, she definitely isn't okay. In this iteration of the story, Delilah lost her parents in a flood 10 years ago. So they didn't see her go into high school. They didn't see her graduate. They didn't see her grow older. And now that she is starting to become an adult, she is very conscious of this fact. And although she has very lovely friends who love her, and she loves her friends so much, she can't help but feel a sense of loneliness and dread. She just feels so trapped. She feels trapped in her situation. She feels trapped in her mind. She feels unlovable. And I haven't even brought up the fact that Delilah and Ivy have been in a multi-month-long situationship. She's just not having the greatest time of her life right now, and she is crumbling just a little bit. And it's so incredibly obvious when you go into her house. Like, I imagine that it is completely trashed. Like, she is a hoarder. And I don't say that in like a haha silly way. Her house is covered in old newspapers, and it's covered in gifts that her parents gave her, and it's covered in just trash and just, it was everything from 10 years ago to now, because she feels like throwing away that stuff that her parents had is like losing her parents all over again. I imagine that her only sense of routine is church, and it's the same church that she's been going to for years now. Her parents actually went to church with her. That's how long she's been going to church for. Overall, Delilah just wants to feel loved. She wants to feel needed. She wants to feel like her life has purpose. And when she's gifted this crystal and told that this crystal gives you the ability to transform into a magical girl, and it actually does, oh my god, she is like a new person. She is ecstatic by the idea of purifying vampires. In her heart, feels like she is not good enough. She feels like she is stuck and she will never get out of this rut. So seeing that these people are vampires, and vampires in media are like characters that you have to kill in order to get rid of. Like, there is no going back from being a vampire in traditional media. But when she sees that in this story, they can be brought back, it just makes her so incredibly happy. There isn't much that I can tell you about Emilia, because if I'm being honest, she doesn't serve a humongous role in the story. Or at least not her sentient form, if that makes sense. Eimi is one of the people that goes missing, especially early on in the story. Like, she is gone before Delilah even becomes a magical girl. But I can tell you that her personality is very sharp. As a person, Eimi is kind of hard to get along with. She can be really mean when she feels targeted, and when things get rough, she is always the first to leave. Her running away is not an uncommon occurrence at all. So much so that when she does, initially at the very beginning of the story, no one is even thinking about it until a month passes, and then they start to get a little worried. And saying all this, it's making me realize that she comes off as really rude and kind of like a person you wouldn't want to be friends with, which, valid. But she's actually a really good friend. She's just a very confident person, so much so that it sometimes destroys her. She's kind of like Bakugo in a way, where it's like she has such built-up insecurity that it like pours out sometimes, you know what I mean? But she's also passionate and cares so much about her friends, and she has such a strong sense of justice that a lot of people think that her pros outweigh her cons. But either way, she does actually end up coming back after that initial month. Or at least she is found by another member of the Speed Paint, which we will talk about later. And she's also found as a vampire smiles at you with my big, beautiful blue eyes. So that's what most of her concept art was focused on. I want the vampires in the story to have a distinct, almost magical feel to them. One thing that was really important to me early on is that I really wanted the vampires and the magical girls to be the complete opposite of one another. Like, usually when it comes to colors in media, black usually means evil, white usually means good guys, you know what I mean? So I wanted to do the opposite of this. The magical girls wear completely black except for their colorful cathedral, stained glass-esque pieces on the dresses. And despite wearing all black, their whole thing is light and purification. And I imagine that when the moon hits their dresses, it like ricochets off to the floor and like glows a bit. And I think it would look really pretty. Robin and I also thought it would be a really interesting idea if like they wear black, because it is important that they don't look like a threat. So when blood does get on them, it's not as apparent. Where the vampires, on the other hand, don't care if they look like threats. So they wear all white. Or I don't know if they're gonna wear all white, but I think I'm gonna have all the vampires have white hair. I think that might be interesting because if the magical girls are suns, then the vampires should be the moon, right? I also love the idea of them having moon eyes. Like, I imagine that in this world, the vampire cycle lasts 28 days. Like, on the very first day, you're basically human. Maybe you feel a little weak, but you're still human. You still have thoughts and feelings and questions about the world, you know. But on the 28th day, you are a complete vampire. And in this world, vampires don't really have sentience. They are just blood hungry. And they attack whatever and whoever they can just so that they can eat. So I imagine that this is why it is so important for the magical girls to catch the vampires quickly, because 28 days isn't a lot of days. And it's also why the vigilante team, when they see the magical girls, they think they're doing nothing, because the vampires that they find are closer to 28 days. And because they are represented through a 28-day cycle, I imagine that their eyes also change based on the moon cycles. And I'm not saying that their eyes match the moon at the current night. I more so mean on the first day of their transformation, their eyes would be a new moon. So it would just be the eye color that they already have. And throughout the days, their eyes start to change. And then on the 28th day, their eyes are completely white, just like a full moon. You know what I mean? It's a very easy way for the magical girls to track how dangerous the vampire might be and how much magic the vampire might take in order to purify them. Also, I just really like this idea because I love the idea that at night in the forest, you just see two white eyes staring at you. I think that would be so creepy. I like that a lot. Next up, I want to talk about Ro, because oh my goodness, Ro is one of my favorite characters in this story. She is so very compelling to me. However, design-wise, she was a problem child this entire time. At this current moment, I can't recall, but I don't think Ro is a character that needed to be redesigned. I think that was a character that was included in the story because I really wanted characters that were like a part of like the different sides of the color wheel. Does that make sense? Like they're all supposed to be opposite colors that complement each other. So I needed a fourth character, but I couldn't figure out what to do with the character. For a while, she was like a tattoo artist, and then she was like a party goer, and then she was like a villain for like a day and a half. I just didn't have any ideas. And then I talked about it with Robin, and Robin was like, I think you should make her a magical girl and also a fisherman. And I was like, that's such a cute idea. I'm doing it. I wanted Ro to be a very energetic character. Like, this character is always positive every single time. She just is always smiling. She is silly. Like, she is the Pinkie Pie of the universe. She is the heart of the friend group. She is so lovely. Her and her father care so much about this town that they are in that when they noticed that they were starting to have food shortages, they went out of their way to buy a boat and start fishing. And that fact alone just represents Ro as a person. She is the definition of a sunshine character, and I love her so much. And you know what I love more than a sunshine character? I love it when a sunshine character does something absolutely deplorable in order to bring back someone they love. And yes, I do love Dungeon Meshi and Arcane. Why'd you ask? So if you didn't pick up what I was putting down earlier, Ro is the person that finds Emilia as a vampire. And instantly she thinks, oh, that's not a big deal. She just recently turned, so just a quick magic spell and all is well. But for some reason, it doesn't work. So she tries another one, and another, and another. And for some reason, all the spells that have worked on so many other vampires aren't working on her. And Rose starts to panic. And since she wants to keep a very close eye on Emilia, she kind of keeps her captive. Essentially, she kind of keeps Emilia in her basement and does different experiments on her in order to bring her back to her human form. And don't get me wrong, I know that it sounds torturous. That doesn't sound great. But Ro is doing it out of the deepest love in her heart. She cares so desperately for Eimi. She cares about the other vampires too, but it just kind of hits different when it's someone that she knows. Like, before this, Ro was the initial priestess. She was a priestess before Delilah was. She's been doing this for a while now, so at this point, it kind of just feels like a second job. A job she likes, don't get me wrong, but it's the same thing as passing out fish to her. It's something she does all the time, something she doesn't really think about, something that she knows helps others, but she doesn't get too emotional about. But the fact that she can't figure out what's wrong with Eimi, truthfully, it makes her spiral. And it makes it so much worse that she can't tell Delilah because she knows that Delilah wouldn't support this action. And she can't tell Ivy because she thinks Ivy doesn't know vampires are a thing. So she kind of has to keep it to herself. And it's heartbreaking for her. Speaking of magical girls, I loved designing the magical girls for this challenge. I think that they look so distinct and I'm having such an easy time remembering how to draw them. And it just makes me really, really happy. They're heavily inspired by priestesses, obviously, with an emphasis on priests and nuns. Initially, their themes were going to be crystals because technically they take the sickness from the vampires and put it into a crystal. And also their weapons come from crystals. Oh, they have weapons. I totally didn't mention that before. Their weapons are strictly defensive. Since they don't want to hurt the vampires, they don't have any weapons that are sharp. And because they're magical, they do rely on the character and their personality and the things that they like and the things that are important to them. So obviously, Ro's weapon is going to be a net. Since Ro has been a magical girl for a little bit of time now, she's learned how to fight pretty well. So she doesn't really need to rely on anything to benefit her fighting skills. And Delilah's the opposite. Since she is a new priestess, she has a shield to protect herself because she's not good at fighting yet. And that's okay. I love her anyways. But back to the designs. Initially, I really liked the idea of them being based off of crystals, but it was important to me that the vampire and magical girl elements blend in well together because I was scared that if I made this story, it would look like Twilight X, like Sailor Moon, and it just wouldn't suit the vibe. But I sat on it a bit and I thought about what connects magical girls and vampires. And me personally, I would say priests. I mean, magical girls, sometimes they can be priests, which is already connection there. But also, in a lot of media, holy water and crosses are used to get rid of vampires, so I thought that just suited them. And my favorite part about churches are the stained glass murals. So I really wanted to add that into the character designs as well. And I think they might look a little funky. I think that the contrast might be a bit off. So I'm gonna have to mess with it just a little bit. But I really like where the designs are headed. Next up, we have Ivy, my darling. I love Ivy so much. Ivy radiates confidence. She's blunt and sarcastic and snarky, and she knows just what to say to make other people feel the same way. So when Ivy and a small group outside of her friends find out about vampires.
Lore update alert! I'm going to change it so that Ivy goes to a party and then there's a vampire attack at the party. And then all the surviving members of the vampire attack come together to make a vampire killing team.
And decide that they are going to go out and kill vampires in order to keep their town safe. People naturally selected Ivy to be the leader, which she not exactly fond about it. You see, despite the fact that Ivy has a lot of friends and a lot of very close friends, she really likes to be alone. She's the type of girl to go to a party and then dance on the dance floor alone without anyone asking her any questions. She's the type of girl to spend a lot of her time at her parents' botanical garden. She likes silence. She likes the comfort of knowing that after a fun day with her friends, she can go home and chill. Now, Ivy spends a lot of her time around a lot of people, and it stresses her out. And it also doesn't help when her situationship partner, Delilah, starts applying more force and pressure onto the relationship, and she just feels like there's so much going on that she can't even deal with this right now. To others, she can come off as mean and blunt, especially because of the fact that she does kill vampires, but everything she does isn't based on hatred. Instead, it's based on love. She sees the vampires as a virus that needs to get rid of, and how do you get rid of a virus if not go to the source and squash it? And later on in the story, when she does find out that magical girls are a thing and that the magical girls are purifying the vampires, she doesn't agree with this idea. Life after purification is not a walk in the park. It is hard, it's constant pain, it's aches, feeling the constant dread and the pain for what you've done. Like, yes, they're back, but at what cost? Ivy doesn't see this as a form of mercy. Ivy sees this as torture. And she also grows to hate the fact that she can't tell Delilah and Ro and Eimi or anyone in the town what's happening. She feels both in the spotlight and alone. She doesn't know what to do. And when she eventually finds out that the magical girls that she is enemies with are her best friends, her life begins to crumble.
Design-wise, I was so confident in the fact that I knew what I was going to do for the final product. So confident. I made so many sketches of her, and I was just like, yeah, this is exactly how I want her to look. And then I realized I have no idea what I want her colors to look like. Also, I didn't really put much thought into the fact that she needs a hairstyle. Like, when I think of her, this sketch pops up. So I thought a lot about which hairstyle she could have. I thought maybe she has straight hair. Maybe it's braids that turn into straight hair. Maybe it's cornrows. And I decided on cornrows. But I don't think this drawing looks very good. I looked at a lot of tutorials on how to draw cornrows, and I saw the vision. But I tried to simplify it just to suit my art style, because I like my hair where it's like you can see the outline and then there's minimal detail on the inside. But with cornrows, it seems to be the opposite, where there's minimal detail on the outside and then a lot of detail on the inside. So I was trying to make it look good. I don't know if it looks good. I honestly don't think it looks good, but it's okay because I'll just experiment later on. I think when it came to this story, I realized that in my head, all of my characters are very diverse, but I don't have as much experience as I would like to in order to draw what I want to draw. Like, I struggled with Ivy's cornrows. I struggled with Delilah's body type. I wanted Delilah to be a lot thicker, but I couldn't display it the way I wanted it to. And when it came to Eimi and Ro, I really wanted them to have very distinct faces, but I just don't think I displayed it as much as I would like to. At the end of the day, though, I am just trying my best, and I know that the more I draw these characters, the better I will get at displaying the things that I'm having a hard time with. So I know it will be okay. It's just one of those things that needs time and practice in order to get right. And I think I'm going to take that into consideration into my future videos. So when I do design challenges, I'm going to try to make my characters more diverse and change the body types and change the face shapes and change the hairstyles. And hopefully, the more practice, the better, you know?